What will you do when your money works for you? Welcome to the Tech Girl Financial Podcast with your hosts, Victor and Kim Gaxiola. From the home office in California, here is Victor and Kim.
Hello and welcome to another bonus episode of the Tech Girl Financial Podcast. Now, we know recently that the headlines have just been completely built around a lot of chatter and discussion with the recent bankruptcy of FTX in the cryptocurrency space. And we're not going to go into any real details specific to the bankruptcy or to FTX or what has transpired, but we wanted to provide some big picture perspective as to these kinds of activities that follow in the technology space, and that it's something we've seen before.
It sure is something we've seen before, and I can think of 3 different situations very similar to this one we're experiencing today. And what I would say is all new disruptive technology goes through growing pains.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you look back, you can go as far back as I think the automotive industry, or even further before that much like in the cryptocurrency blockchain space, there's a lot of players, at least initially, because there's so much enthusiasm built around the technology and the opportunities. So you look at the automotive industry, you look at the computer industry and the internet, many players, a lot of people involved, no real clear sign of who's going to take the lead position. But what you do know is that at least that the technology is groundbreaking, and this new innovation is going to make an impact on how we might communicate with each other in the case of the automotive industry, how we transport ourselves. And then from the automotive industry, you just start looking at other repercussions down the road.
That's right. Oh my gosh. If you're a Gen Xer, how many of you remember Commodore 64?
I had one. That was my first real computer. Did you have an Apple? Didn't you have an Apple too?
Well, I had one of those, but I think before that was Commodore 64.
Yeah, basic training. I remember writing some programs on BASIC.
I mean, they're no longer around, but look, how many computers do we have in this room?
Oh, yeah, it's true. Not to say anything of the computer that we hold in our pocket and carry with us all the time. I mean, how powerful an iPhone or an Android device is.
Yeah, and I don't see anybody these days carrying around a BlackBerry. I mean, there may be some, but I just don't know those people. Mm-hmm. And so, we could go on and on about all the technology out there that is amazing, massive disruptors in our industry. And here we are again today. Different disruption, but the same situation that happens in, I think, anything that is new and up and coming.
Yeah.
And so we want to address it because this is something we look at, and we are always looking for technologies and disruption that's really going to make changes for the better in our lives. But there are always things that will create setbacks. I don't think there is any opportunity that doesn't come along with risk.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, cryptocurrencies and the whole blockchain space has had a very tough year, as most equities this year have had in 2022. However, I think it was recognized that any sort of investment or any sort of involvement in the crypto space was very likely to carry with it some risk, a lot of risk, because for one, it's not very regulated. 2, a lot of these companies are operating offshore, which is to say they're not based in the United States. And 3, it's still all very new. And so it's easy for there to be a lot of misinformation. And so many of the people who are involved in this, at least initially, were very much speculatively looking for opportunities to have that meteoric growth by placing a bets on coins, and in many cases just based on speculation. However, the underlying technology, which underscores this entire marketplace, is blockchain. And I think that there is a lot of opportunity in the blockchain in looking at these distributed ledgers that allow for people to do either financial transactions or any sort of transactions in this place that is fully transparent, fully documented, and definitely something that is likely to disrupt the entire financial landscape. But the truth is, it's still very early.
So, Victor, what does FTX, Netscape, Pets.com, and 6 Degrees all have in common?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Yes. What they share in common is that all of them were kind of some of the first movers in their respective space that really don't exist anymore.
That's right. So we wanted to give you that little list because as we put this all into perspective, you know, I don't know anyone who's not communicating over the internet, but or doing searches on the internet, but we're not using Netscape anymore.
That's correct.
Same thing with Pets.com. They were a proud sponsor of the Super Bowl. I have no clue which year that was, but that was probably somewhere between 1999 and 2002. And that was the onset of online commerce. And all of those internet companies, so many of them went public and then are no longer listed anymore, went bankrupt or what have you. But we're still doing business online, and that's internet commerce. And we can say 6 Degrees. I didn't even know about that one. That was one that you told me about. I can think more of MySpace, which I think some people are still using, but that's the...
It's had a few lives, MySpace. But 6 Degrees, 1997 is one of the first of the social networks that, you know, at least was falling in that space, followed by MySpace, and then, of course, LinkedIn. Shortly thereafter, Facebook, mostly for university students, of course. Facebook has survived, and yet now Facebook, Twitter, and some of these very well-known social platforms are kind of a little bit on the ropes right now.
They are, but I think we're still going to use social media. They just may not be relevant anymore. But you know, how many people use a program like Slack or one of those where we are using social media to communicate with our peers?
Well, you know, I love sports, right? And so it's funny because I always think of ways to relate this in a way that's easy to digest. And I think the easiest way for me to digest what we're suggesting here, which is this whole idea of all these different facets of business that started with the first couple of players. And then, of course, you never know which of the players are going to survive. Well, I think of a game like baseball. Okay, so the game itself has evolved over time, and yet the basic rules of it continue to be the same. Now, they will make adjustments in order to speed it up and such, but the players change every year. And yet the game still prevails, and it still grows, and it still evolves. And I think that that's the case for all these technologies, because you're right. When Netscape came out, it was really about search engine. It was about using the internet, using it as a library and to index and find things. Netscape didn't survive, but Google thrived, and it continues. You know, and there's been others. There's been Bing. There's been Yahoo. There's been a lot of other search engines, but for some reason, Google continues to surpass them all and survive. You look at the next bit, Pets.com. Yes, Pets.com didn't survive, but there's a lot of .coms that have.
That's right.
But what it introduced, as you said, is this whole commerce of exchange, of purchasing products and services through the online medium. And then the third one on the social networking, yes, 6 Degrees didn't survive. MySpace has had its hits. And maybe Facebook and Twitter, who knows what's going to happen next. But it did fundamentally change how we communicate with each other, how we share content, how we share news, information, and share.
That's right. So I guess what we're here to say is that we're still positive on blockchain.
Yes, we still do think, and I do strongly believe that everything that's transpired with FTX has only brought to light the need for there to be some regulation, some oversight, and some control in this space, just from the standpoint of making sure that it's authentic, transparent, and that people have confidence in using it.
And that will change over time too. I can't help but think of a comparison with the rules for social media and Facebook, and everybody talks about the rule. I think it's 230, Section 230 or something. But whether we like regulation or not, a little regulation is necessary so that we have these, like in bowling, you have the bumpers, so that you stay within the lane and you don't go into the alley. I think that these regulations have to be like those bumpers.
Yeah. It's odd to be thinking that we're actually suggesting that we want some oversight, control, and regulation. But in this particular area, in order to protect investors and protect people from making bad decisions and purchasing things that do not have that oversight, that are not following specific rules, yes, I think it is important just there to be at least that governing body, whether it's a peer set governing body or some subset of the government, like the SEC or FINRA or one of these organizations that provides that level of control and if not oversight. This will need that as well in order for people just to have the confidence to use it.
Yeah, and I want to put this all into another context of experience, because today, we can look at our kids and Gen Z and their excitement towards Bitcoin and digital currencies and the blockchain, very similar to our excitement in the .com era.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And while there were so many young people heading up these .com companies back in our day, there are a lot of young people heading up the digital currencies and the exchanges of today. And it's almost like you got to get your experience through something like this.
Right. And if it was limited, if you will, to speculative traders and such, you might be able to dismiss that the blockchain technology definitely doesn't have a place in commerce. However, you do have large organizations like JP Morgan and Fidelity that are actually looking at ways to integrate this idea of blockchain technology in their businesses because they, to their credit, have seen, where they think we're headed in the future, and this youth that you talk about, which is more likely to adopt it, to be able to position themselves in such a way to provide a solution for those that want this level of exchange, this level of trade, to say nothing of the opportunities that exist with, foreign purchases of products, what typically would have been a foreign exchange.
Absolutely. So I think in summarizing what has gone on in the past few days with all of the discussion around the exchange of in FTX, I think we really do want to put it into context. Yes, it sounds scary. And there are a bunch of people that have been so negative on digital currencies and blockchain, and just as many probably have been positive on the technology. And to put it into scope, we feel that this is just the early onset of this technology. And most disruptors have a setback. Mm-hmm. And this is the setback today. And it would not to say that there's not going to be another setback. There could be many setbacks, but we do believe that the technology is here to stay.
Yeah. And I think clearly in our observation and based on experience, it's very likely that the bankruptcy of FTX and its relationship with Alameda Research will have repercussions in the entire industry. So even those that didn't have direct exposure and perhaps weren't involved at all in the exchange with FTX or own any of their coins, they will be affected. But I think it's the entire industry that is likely to be affected for the course of the next year at least, before people regain confidence again. And the real players, like the real ones that have a strong business model, transparent financials, a great leadership and board, those will prevail as they always do in most industries.
Absolutely. So I guess in the end of the day, I can say I'm so grateful for experience because experience and diversity, right? Or diversification is because, as strongly as we may believe in any of these disrupting technologies, we never put all of our eggs in that one basket because we just know that things like this are common and happen, and there is always risk.
Yeah, and so we're very open to hear your thoughts. As you know, our podcast is available on multiple platforms, and we distribute them also on some of our approved social networks. So if you have a comment or a question, please reach out to us. You can always find us on our website at techgrowfinancial.com, which includes links to our emails, so feel free to send us a message. But we just wanted to put together a quick bonus episode in preparation for the 6th season of Tech Grow Financial, which should be coming out before the end of the year. And we're very excited to share with you what's coming up next. But we didn't want to dismiss or ignore the fact that this was a big story. Obviously may cause some concerns, not only for our clients, but for people who are paying attention. The good news there is we did not have any direct exposure to FTX. We couldn't buy it. We wouldn't sell it. We were certainly not involved in that exchange.
And for all the Gen Zers, don't get discouraged because your first investment happened to be a digital currency and it didn't go in the right direction. We have all been there before. And this is why a lot of people come to us for that experience and to give them advice to say, hey, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's right. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, just feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future shows, please send an email to victor@techgrowfinancial.com or join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag AskTGF. We also encourage you to follow us on the Tech Grow Financial page on Facebook and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Tech Grow Financial and Cambridge Investment Research, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions.